I mean, isn't that our next book?
Yes.
It's just overall, I can't tell you. So I can't tell you how frustrating it is when I walk into a team or I'm talking with somebody and like some sort of leader and they're talking about this big lengthy process of doing things and it's just overly complex. Like I'll put a great example from my personal experience is I was working on an app, and the app had code for four different products across four different platforms for a couple of different. I wouldn't say clients. Brands. There we go. Brands. A couple of different brands, and the team had this really nice build system, this build process of getting everything together and pumping out the app to send over to the QA team and to eventually end up in the Play Store and all that stuff. And all four platforms, everything stayed on the same version, and we very deliberately did that because we needed to know like we really needed to know, hey, this version is this, and it covers and it touches all of the other code. Well, what ended up happening is this idiot came in. I mean, he was so stupid. And he got placed as a leader and basically berated and browbeat the team into doing his what he wanted. And he was like, I want everything to be completely and utterly separate. All four products ended up on uh separate, what do you call it, versions. And the build process, or the process for building one of the apps out, just became extremely complicated, and it was confusing for us. And we were constantly getting tickets back from QA about, hey, this is happening here and you need to go fix the bug. And we'd go and we'd try to figure out, we'd spend like a couple of hours trying to figure out where the bug was and what build the bug was on, and we couldn't figure it out oftentimes. And it was kind of one of those situations where uh, we we'd be like, well, it looks fixed, or it's not happening here, what's going on? And then like we'd spend an hour or so spinning our wheels on that, and then we'd finally get a good discussion with somebody, and then we'd realize, oh, it's on this version. Then we'd go to that version, and then we would have to try and make sure that it ended up in all of the appropriate other versions. And then on top of that, what was even more hilarious is some new people came onto the team, and this idiot tasked them with, hey, go create builds. And they got confused with how to create the builds. They had no idea. So they had to try it like multiple times before they got it right.
Yeah, making builds should totally be a junior dev thing.
It should be extremely simple. Like, I'm serious. Creating a build, in an ideal world, creating a build for a release should be as simple as pressing a button. That's what it should be. That's the absolute like best case scenario for your product. Is you want to create a build, you just press a button and a build pops out. That's it, nothing else. Like, but this guy, when it came in, and just overly complicated the process and confused everybody about it. And like I said, it caused us a ton of issues, and it's still causing issues for the team. And I'm like, we had this so nice and compact and simple. It was so clear cut as to what we were doing, and you just effed it all up. Like, do you not see what happened? And yeah, like that's just an example of, like, you need to keep your processes simple. You need to keep your communication simple. Like when you're talking to kids, like when you're talking to when you are if you are a team leader and you are talking to somebody who's under you, you need to be very clear to them about what your expectations are, and they need to be simple. Like, it needs to be simple, because otherwise they're going to go and screw up. And if you are a junior talking to the leader, then you can't, like, they don't see. And this is one of the other another thing. All right, so I'm just ranting right now about simplicity and stuff, and Phil's just sitting here enjoying my rant because I have ranted to him about this before. Although I'm waiting for him right now because he's just writing something
No, no, you. I'm having fun.
down. Uh-huh. You're going to ruin my rant. In fact, it's already ruined.
No, no, you keep going.
Okay. So in software development, what we very often have is the agile system. Like we follow the agile system, and that calls for what are for daily stand-ups, which is where the team gets together and tells the team, this is what I did yesterday, this is what I'm planning on doing today. I'm stuck at this or whatever. Now, very often what happens, because engineers tend to be very detail oriented people, is we go to these stand-ups and stuff, and excuse me, yeah, we go to these stand-ups, and engineers get bogged down in the details with things, and they just want to tell the entire team all of the details of some issue that they're working on. And that's not the appropriate time to do it. Stand up is definitely not the appropriate time to do it, because what ends up happening at that point is the product owner or the project manager comes in, and they're trying to talk to the team, and they get confused because the engineer is giving a fire hose of technical information, and the product owner or the project manager, that's not their wheelhouse. That's not, like, they're not necessarily a technical person. They're not going to sit there and understand that, oh, the server went down because we did this and this. Like, they're not going to understand that. All they want to know is, server's down, we are working on a solution, we should have something up in, or we should have the solution up within 4 hours. That's what they want. That's what they need. That is a simple report. And like, too often I saw in stand-ups, and I'm repeating myself, but I see like them engineers going in and just like fire hose of information and stuff. And it's like, yes, I get it. It's often better to have to give too much information than too little, because you don't want to give too little and have somebody try and ask you questions and draw information out of you. But you also don't want to give too much.
Yeah, but you don't over inform the whole dang team that's not involved. You're wasting their time.
Yes, exactly. 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 And that's the big thing. Like, you're wasting their time. You need to show them respect by not doing that. So you need to be.
They need to get to work and fix the other problems before you have a second fire to put out.
Mhm. So that's an example of going of talking up the chain and everything, and like giving simple reports and simple feedback, and things like that. I mean, writing your code. At one point I put up a PR, and I had I was calling a function, and I had created two throwaway variables right before calling that function, and passed the two variables into that function. And somebody commented, well, why don't you call the functions within that function? I'm like, my response was basically, yes, I get it. I know it's a few more lines of code, and I could do that, but what's more important is maintainability and readability, and keeping it very simple, so that when you are reading through the code, you know exactly what is going on. So, and this is kind of like a paradox of simplicity too, or as Jocko might call it, a dichotomy. Um, there's like, when you're writing code, something that's simple may end up being more lines of code. Like, the concept of simple is not necessarily brevity, because that's what a lot of people will equate simplicity with, and that's not necessarily true. Simplicity is very much goes to the heart of understanding, and making sure that you are properly communicating things to people so that they understand what you are talking about. So even though your code, if you're writing, sometimes when you're writing very simple code, sometimes it might take 10 lines of code to write something simple. Whereas you could probably squash that down into 2 lines of code. But the issue is that when you squash it down to 2 lines of code, at that point, what is the cognitive overhead or the cognitive load on the person who comes in later? And it's most likely going to be you to try and understand what you just wrote. That's the issue. And when the cognitive load to understand something later is higher than the number of lines of code, essentially, then you need to increase your number of lines of code to make it simple to understand. Our compile, like, people sit there and are like, "Oh, you need to write super performant code." And I'm like, first off, that's a lie, and you're an idiot. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, you're first off, that's a lie, and you're an idiot if you believe that. And I'm dead serious because, as Phil just pointed out, today's technology is amazing. I've got a MacBook Pro right now operating 64 gigabytes of RAM. Take that in for a moment and think about that. 64 gigabytes of RAM. And I know that there are computer builds out there that could go higher than that for RAM. Our technology today is absolutely insane, and it's only getting better. So you absolutely do not need to write super performant code.
That's about ego. The super performing code is really like me saying, I am such a bad mofo that my code is so efficient and I spent 32 hours making this function perfect. It only cost them 20 years of server time. They could have tripled their return by buying 3 servers.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like it's so dumb to me. And the other aspect of it is the compilers nowadays are super intelligent. Like, they can really streamline your code for you. Now, I will say, I there are times and places for performant code, and there are times and places when you are going, like, when you need that proper performance and stuff, and you can start taking into account those, like, streamlining that code. And usually that's in the case of the user experience. Like, if the user experience starts to suffer and you sit there and you have, like, all of your other ducks in a row, and that's the other aspect of it too, is it's like you need to have the entire app together first, and you need to have all of your ducks in a row first, and then you can address the lags and go and look at the lags. So anyway, that is my long, probably 15-20 minute rant on simplicity in a lot of different aspects of things. And like I said, this is my favorite chapter. I really believe this concept is super underutilized and understood.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Even though I say it's boring and not sexy, as my taking 32 hours to create a 5% efficiency boost. Uh, you know,
The funny part is, like, maybe that 5% efficiency boost for somebody in somebody's use case equates to $1 million. Like, maybe.
true, but maybe get them to that $1 million first. Um,
Yeah. It's very true.
there's a time and place for it. I like the way you said that first you get the project done and then you simplify because I might spend 32 hours on simplifying something and they may not ever implement that feature that I wasted a lot of resources on just to come back and say I did good around Thanksgiving dinner table. So I like keeping it simple. I like making my code that I can just throw it away if it doesn't work, and if it does stick, then go make it better if it should be because you don't know how efficient something's going to be until you start using it. You can do all your big O notation that you want, right? As long as you're not doing something ridiculous, right? Uh, you start somewhere, right? But yeah, I think just I hate to say it, keep it simple, keep it boring, and then do sexy later.
Yeah, yeah. I do like your. I like how you brought up the throw away your code thing, because it's one of those things I do think programmers have a really hard time with, and in a lot of ways, it's probably a lot of other industries as well, where people become very attached to what they create, and when they become attached to what they create, and maybe we have talked about this before, but let's whatever, we'll go over it again. When people become attached to what they create, they start to identify themselves with that, and it becomes a part of who they are. And then when you go to throw it away or you go to change it, they get very upset over it, because it is attached to their identity and who they are. They feel like you're attacking them. And I will be like, I'll be honest, when I first started out programming and such, and I still struggle with this on occasion, I have to, like, I was very attached to the code that I was writing. I was very attached to the stuff that it did. And so when someone gave me negative feedback, it was hard to deal with. And like I said, I still sometimes deal with that today. So a little tip for people who are doing that: when you get negative feedback on something you were working on, read it and then give yourself time. Do not act on that negative feedback immediately. Give yourself, I would say, it.
No, you make a video, you rant, you TikTok it, you YouTube it, you paste it to the spam it everywhere, and then you realize you misread what they were trying to say. It's so much better to ask forgiveness than to do it right in the first place.
Exactly. Do what Phil said, not what I said. Phil's the smart one here, not me.
Yeah, my emotional intelligence is way up there.
I'm not even calling that emotional intelligence. I'm just think of it more as personal management.
Right? I don't deal with stress in my life. Other people deal with my lack of ability to deal with stress.
It's true. It's so true. Oh my gosh. All right. So when you feel like, I really did like what you said about so you could throw away your code, because that's, if you become detached from your code, it becomes super easy for you to write code that's bad and then come back later, improve on it, and throw out the old code later. It was funny. There was this guy who told me a long time ago, if you do not, if you write code and then come back and look at it 6 months later, and you do not dislike that code, so you come and you look at it, and you're still fond of that code, you're doing it wrong. Like, you should be improving month after month after month, and you should always look back at your code 6 months ago and say it's terrible, and want to and want to do something better. So it's like, I think that's a very important concept that I got taught young. And and a lot of it, and again, like, I'm talking a lot of this stuff in the idea of, in the concept of programming and everything, but that's because that's the industry I know. But I also know that can be expanded to many other things. Like, if you're a writer and you wrote an article 6 months ago, and you go and you look at it, you should be able to find something wrong with that article and improve on it. um
Yeah, yeah. I have not listened to myself or looked at something I've done 6 or months or 18 months ago and said, "Yeah, I was the best I ever could have been back then." There's a song. I don't believe in that. Right? What's that song, Lady Gaga? You're the best now that you need to be, or something like that. Um, I think I'm butchering it because I think it's ridiculous, but
oh, I don't know. I stopped listening to her 10 years ago. honestly Honestly, I don't particularly care for most of her music these days, but I will say she did a duet album with Tony Bennett, and oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. You need to check it out. Holy cow. Like, I think that is her best ever, and it actually shows that she knows music and can sing. So while I don't really care for most of her music, I can respect her as a singer and artist partly because of that album. So anyway, side tangent. I think that's it because it is just awesome. Tony Bennett.
How funny would that be if she sponsors you? Your first sponsor.
Cheek to Cheek is one album, but they do Anything Goes, Cheek to Cheek, Nature Boy. I Can't Give You Anything. I Won't Dance. It don't mean anything. Like it's all the good classics, and um, it's just she does such a fantastic job, and of course it's Tony Bennett, so he's doing a good job.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go and teach her a few things.
Oh God, yeah. And it's funny too because like I go and I watch the music videos or I've gone and watched the music videos of those, and she you can tell from the music videos that the two of them are having a lot of fun doing what they're doing. Like it's really cool. So anyway, geez, 26 million, 27 million.